Let's see. And the record button has been hit. So this is Multifamily Masters Live. This is number 2. Our first one was in January. It is February. We're going to do this every month, third Monday of the month. So mark your calendars. We're going to do educational series on top of guest speakers. Next month, our plan is to have a really cool, a really outstanding, a really awesome, fantastic guest speaker. And we're not really going to announce that for another couple of weeks, but I'm pretty excited about who it is. So what is Multifamily Masters? We are rapidly becoming the world's largest multifamily / cash flow platform. We have 60 meetups across the country. We have an online newsletter that we send out every month. We have a Facebook group that I just hit the link in the comments. Join that Facebook group if you're not already in it. I hit a link to our YouTube page, which is where we will post a recording to this call probably tomorrow. On top of that, we are coming out with a mastermind program. Mastermind program, if you are interested in learning this business, networking in this business, hanging out with like-minded individuals while learning it and building the teams around you, you will definitely want to reach out to us. A little bit about us. Mr. Pao Chi resides in California. He's the gentleman that started all of this with 14 meetups just in California. Now we have about 60 or so across the world. Our goal by the end of summertime is to probably have 120 or so. We almost have a waiting list, but if you're interested in becoming a host, a sponsor, affiliated with our meetup program, reach out to us. It's a great way to get exposure for yourself. It's a great way for you to become a professional in this space. It wins and we take the guesswork out of it. We provide education not only on how to run a meetup, but real estate in general. So that's a little bit about us and what we're doing. Powell is in California, 1,000+ apartments. Ferris is in Texas, 1,000+ apartments in Atlanta and Texas. My name is Garrison Gilbert. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. Couple hundred apartments, couple thousand houses throughout the last 20 years. I know a thing or two when it comes to real estate, but as a group, the three of us collectively are here to help you win. With that being said, go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Appreciate it, Garrison. So yeah, my name is Powell Chi, and like Garrison mentioned, I was helped start this 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, and this has grown significantly. I went from 8 people meeting inside of a hotel lobby to now we're having over 60 chapters, and we have a couple chapters around the world. Super happy about that, and we're popping up new chapters all the time. So, we got. Just took a look really quickly at some of the new chapters coming up. We have some ones coming up in San Jose, California, Dallas. Dallas had one. We have 2 going in Dallas, and our second one will be operating pretty much next month. We had one in Laverne, California, which is part of Southern California, another area of Southern California that just had their first meetup as well. And looks like Birmingham, Alabama is on the list. Anybody here from Birmingham, Alabama? That's area. So Birmingham, Alabama, we got some great leaders to be out there, and we continue to grow. A lot of our ones that started out fairly recently started with a couple people, maybe like 5-10 people, and now they're up at some good numbers. So they're significantly more than 20 to 30 people. San Francisco is growing out really well. Durango, Colorado, growing out really well. Phoenix, Arizona, another one's growing out really, really well. So super happy about it. And like Garrison mentioned, if you're interested in joining and you have a certain location that we don't have any presence in, we're very interested in joining, having you guys join us. And so I think from here, we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. Is that right, Ferris?
I think so.
All right, awesome. So I'll just really quickly, I think we're going to do a presentation. Ferris, Garrison, and I are going to do a presentation. We'll do it for probably about 20-25 minutes. After that, we're going to go ahead into some Q&A. So it can be Q&A on this specific topic, or if it's Q&A on anything else, then we're happy to get into that as well. All right. So, all right, Ferris.
All right, let me get my screen going.
One thing I want to mention what Pal just talked about. When I started this business, I didn't have anyone that I could pick their brain. I didn't know anybody with a couple hundred or a couple thousand apartments. Multifamily Masters is your chance to hang out with some people that have some big portfolios and are doing some really cool things. And that's going to help you skyrocket your business. So take full advantage of this. Write your questions down and think of anything that you want to ask at the end of this. Sorry about that, Ferris. Go for it, my man.
No problem. So, yeah, as you can see, my screen says how to go from 0 to 1 deals in the next 90 days.
You got it.
All right. So I guess before I get started, maybe I'll give a quick introduction about myself and where this deck came from. For those of you that don't know, I'm not as handsome as Garrison and as Powell, but I try to be. But, collectively, the three of us, like we said earlier, right, we're excited to put these MFM lives on. The goal is really providing high-value content. And one of the things I think that comes up very often is about how do people get started. And this deck actually came from a conference that we put on with our friend Kenny that we actually had the last one this past weekend, Multifamily Investor Network. And one of the things we didn't have in the very first one was this deck, right? A lot of people kept asking, okay, great. That was a ton of information, really valuable, but what's the easiest ways to get started? So after the first one, I guess we've had 4 of them, right? The past one was in Houston 2 weekends ago, and then the next one's coming up in San Francisco in June. But after the second one, we started putting this deck together, and really we've gotten a lot of good reception for it in terms of just teaching people the different ways to get started. So today's presentation will be about 20 minutes, and I'm going to kind of go through this, really speak to kind of all the different ways to get started. And, me, Garrison, and Powell will each kind of walk through different parts of this. And then at the end, we'll open up a Q&A because it's not a live audience. It's an online audience. I'm going to, it's going to be hard to warm you guys up, but hopefully you guys get some, enjoyment from it and it's a little bit fun. But with that said, I guess I will go ahead and get started. So, how to go from 0 to 1 deals, right, in the next 90 days. And so first things first, we're going to talk through a lot of different things, including legal, CPA, all that fun stuff. We're not professionals. Please talk to your professional in each of those subjects, right? We are professionals in real estate, which is very different than taking our legal advice and our tax advice. So please consult your expert for that. But with that said, right, this deck is going to do a little bit of a ramp up in terms of kind of talking through the simplest way to get started all the way up to buying your own deal, right? And all the things you need to think about while doing that, right? And so the very first one is investing passively. This is how I started actually before I started Disrupt Equity. And I think same thing with my partner, Ben. Investing passively is kind of the very first taste that most people get into, getting into multifamily investing, right? And so really what is passive investing? It's exactly what it sounds like, right? You are investing passively. The passive part is really you're not having to do a lot in terms of being involved in the deal, right? You are sitting on the sidelines. You have an expert who is the quote unquote the sponsor, right? Who is, finding the deal, putting the deal together, executing the business plan and paying you returns. And so for us, a lot of our investors will show up whenever we have a deal. They'll watch the webinar, right? Fill out the paperwork, wire the funds, and, sit back and relax, really, right? And so, kind of going through the slide, I think I actually just talked through all those points, right? Finding and vetting the sponsor is the very first thing. Talk to people talk to Powell, talk to Garrison, talk to me, talk to other people if you're looking to invest with someone who you don't know, right? And, I like to tell investors, be candid with them. Ask them questions, hard questions, personal questions, kind of anything you need to do to get comfortable because you are basically going to partner with this person and you're going to be, most deals are 3 to 7 year plays, right? And so you need to be comfortable with the person and understand, have they done what they say they're going to do in the past? Can they do it? Does this deal match that? And the other big part of it too is does that deal match your criteria, right? I like to say that as sponsors, a lot of what we do is matching deals to equity, right? And different equity, investors look for different things, right? We have a deal that's a deep value add right now that we're probably going to sell over the summer, but it's a home run in the return side, right? But there was no cash flow the first year, and that's what we presented, right? Other deals might have cash flow much sooner on, right? And, that's great, but they might not home run it as quickly, right? And so different people want different things. And, you have to ask yourself as a passive, what are you looking for? Does that match the business plan? And, can that person really deliver, right? And so, here's some of the main benefits, right? It really does boil down to fill out the paperwork, make a wire, right? You are a partner in the business, in the entity. And so for those of you that don't know, right, really quickly, I think I have this on the next slide, but A syndication, all it is basically pulling together people's money to do a bigger and better thing. So if I have $50,000, I can go buy a $200,000 house leverage. But if I have $50,000 and Garrison has $50,000 and 20 of Garrison's friends have $50,000, right? Well, now we have a lot of money. What is it, $3 million of cash? That $2 million, whatever the number is, that leverage comes up to be about $8 million, right? So you can buy a much bigger asset. Now that asset can have staff, it can have systems, et cetera. And so syndication, you're typically creating an LLC that owns the asset. And as a passive investor, they get the tax benefits. The managers are doing all the work and they're getting compensated for it as well. And, most of the time passives are not having to get involved unless they want to try to vote out the manager and or vote on a refi or sell, right? And so, fundamentally, this passive investing to me is kind of the best way to get started. And for me, it was a good way to see what are other people doing and how do I make sure that we are the best operators, right? And you don't know how to be the best unless you can see what other people are doing. And so I'll pause there. Garrison, Pal, did y'all have anything else to kind of speak to that as well?
And part of we sort of touched on this really quickly in the very beginning is that as a passive investor, you don't have the liability that the active investors do, that the general partnership does. So you're not going to go to jail. You're not going to be either one, like Garrison. you're not going to have that anything. You're not liable as a limited partner. And I think it's kind of curious, but if you ask a lot of, well, I don't know if you ask a lot, but I know a lot of general partners around, I'm friends with a good amount of them. And I feel like this, and I feel like a lot of them feel like the same way, is that down the line, the end goal is probably to be a passive investor. It's like, that's really like, yeah, I'd like to be in the business, but I'd like to just know the business and then just sign checks and just say, hey, yeah, you guys go do it. And, send me the quarterly update and things like that. I think that's really where I'd like to be. So, Garrison, you got anything?
Nah, I'm good. You covered it all.
All
right. See, I made it easy. I just took all the talking points.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going then. So, and again, this is back to the syndication model, right? Sponsors are finding deals, or putting the deal together. They're raising the money with investors. And, I like to look, if I'm passive, I like to look for sponsors that are investing in the deal as well. So they're both on the passive and the active side. And I personally co-invest in every one of our deals as well. And the sponsors are executing that business plan. Like Pal mentioned, they're doing the monthly updates or quarterly updates, ask your sponsor. They're dealing with distributions, they're dealing with the tax paperwork, all that fun stuff. So yeah, ask me how I know it. I'll just say it's tax season right now. It's not fun to go do all the K-1s and all the paperwork for all the deals at the same time. It's all hands on deck at the company. But all right, so with that said, the next common way, and this is what you start to see a lot more of right now as people kind of, graduate up the ladder, right, is really adding value to get into a deal, right? And, these deals are big deals. There's a lot of steps involved. None of them are hard, but there's many of them, right? And different people can have different strengths and therefore can add different kinds of value. And so what I'm going to do is basically kind of run through a couple of very common ways, right, and kind of speak to each of them. And so the very first one is finding a deal, right? I like to tell people, if anyone has a deal, regardless if it's really, I guess not too small, but if it's too big or they don't know what they're doing, but they know it's a deal, please feel free to reach out to me, Garrison, or Pal. We will help get that deal done, right? Because finding a deal, especially in this market, is the hardest part, honestly, of a lot of the steps, right? It may not be the most valuable part, but it is a hard part that, does add a lot of value to people. And so, right now for us, we're having to kiss more frogs than anyone I know. For those of you that don't know, my background is software, so I've been able to leverage a lot on my software skills and kind of really help us scale at Disrupt Equity and be a lot more efficient. And a lot of it is really around how do we source the most deals and how do we underwrite the most deals. And unfortunately, even with all that, it's still very hard to find a deal. And so if someone was to bring a deal to me or another sponsor, right, that's adding value, right? That sponsor will help you get that deal done, bring it down to the finish line. And, you would get compensated for that, right? That's worth something. And so finding a deal is a good one. Another one that's not worth as much, but people can do it because all it is sweat equity, is if you're good with numbers, underwriting a deal is something that can add value, right? I've had people approach me say, hey, can I underwrite all of your deals that come through? I'll be very quick. I'll get you, turnarounds in 48 hours. I'm a numbers guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I want a piece of the deal that if I do underwrite one that you end up buying, hey, that's worth something, right? So that's another thing you can approach a sponsor. And, and I'm just speaking holistically, right? These are depending on the sponsor, depending on what they have, et cetera. But these are just the different facets to get involved, right? Another, I'd say a very common one is around capital, right? And partnering with people around helping with capital. And, there's a lot of caveats with that one. So I want people to kind of be aware that it's not about just bringing money, but that's a way to give you an entry point into getting into a deal and having an active participation in that deal, right? Because there's a lot of legal ramifications of raising capital. So just definitely keep that in mind. But it's a way you approach someone saying, look, I can help raise capital, I can help with the balance sheet, and I can find a deal, right? That's adding a tremendous amount of value to someone. Another one that's actually a pretty good one as well is boots on the ground, right? Maybe someone is buying in a market that they're not in, but you live in that market, right? And you're able to basically offer them value, whether you're saying, look, I'm going to drive by the property 2 times a week. I'll send you pictures. I'll stop by, check in on the staff. I'll deal with any vendors that may need to show up, et cetera, right? That's adding value. And then I will go to kind of the next one is really the balance sheet. So for those of you that don't know, I know I saw Anton on this call, so he's the lending expert. He can definitely speak to you all in more depth, but there's a lot of requirements around taking on debt for any of these deals. And really the biggest, kind of maybe that's the hardest one, but a big one is around, if I'm doing a $20 million loan, right, me and all the GPs have to show that we have both a combined net worth of $20 million and a percentage of that is going to be liquid, right? And so if I don't have all that liquidity or I don't have all that net worth, I can partner with someone like Garrison or Powell or anyone who might have some of that, right? And so, it's basically, I've had people approach me saying, look, I just sold a business. I just did X, Y, and Z. I have a lot of cash and I have a lot of net worth to show and I have a lot of cash in the bank right now. How can I partner with you, right? And again, that's adding value. And to give people perspective, right now, I'm looking at much bigger deals that I know we can't show the net worth liquidity, but I have people in mind who are worth, many, many, many millions of dollars that can help take that deal down, right, in terms of hitting those requirements. And then last but not least, I'm going to go through is basic construction management. And this one, again, it varies by sponsor, varies by what they have, it varies by the deal, right? So some deals, we have might require a tremendous amount of exterior rehab and interior rehab. Maybe it has down units, maybe it's all, there's a lot of steps involved, and having someone who is familiar with construction and an expert at that can help add value, right? And, we've done this. We have someone who a lot of people here know, I don't know if I've mentioned his name or not, but maybe I'll leave it off. But, he's added a tremendous amount of value.
Hey,
He's got MFM chapter. Yeah?
Hey, Ferris. Hey, your computer's breaking up. Powell and myself are having difficulty hearing you.
Yeah, it's kind of
Sorry,
choppy. That's all right.
Maybe it's just rubbing against my shirt. I'll hold my headset a little out. Sorry. But I was saying is basically construction management, right? So there's, we've had someone who we basically give them a piece of the GP, and they were on point to basically help drive all the rehab and construction. And that's adding a lot of value, especially on that deal that we had. It had 30 down units. It's a lot of work. That person has done a fantastic job, and it's freed me up, and it's helped them kind of get more in the deal. And so, again, those are kind of some of the key ways that people can get involved. And again, approach a sponsor and tell them, look, how can I add value? I could do X, Y, and Z, and have that open dialogue, right? Because again, that's how you can help get into a deal. And then, you can talk to that sponsor and tell them, I want to see how the lending works, or I want to see how the monthly asset management calls go, or the weekly asset management calls go, or I want to help with the monthly reports, right? It helps you get visibility into an existing operation to kind of get going.
Yeah, I just want to add to everybody too, and like, we all of us, come at it from a different way. And the way that for me it's easiest to sort of understand is I kind of think of it as 3 different aspects of a deal, right? When you're looking at this type of syndication, you're trying to get involved in adding value with a sponsor. Is that, do you want to add the value on the front end or the acquisition side? I try to think of it as acquisitions, where that's finding a deal, underwriting a deal, doing things like that, potentially even the balance sheet, then closing the loan and things those type of things, all outside of the acquisition side. And then the raising capital, as I kind of feel, is like the middle side. Are you good, or do you have a strong network where you could raise capital? That's, you got to figure out what side that, you like. Or are you more on the construction side, where you're an operations person, you're a project manager, that kind of stuff, construction, and you know how to get a project from, A to Z. And so I tend to think of those as like three separate areas. And then if you think of it as acquisitions, capital / your network, or construction, then you can kind of break down as far as what do you feel like you're strong in. And you may be really strong in one, you may be kind of strong in another one, and maybe weaker in another one, but it's good to figure out where your strength is. And that way, when you do approach a sponsor like Ferris is mentioning, and you're talking with them about what you could bring to the table, you don't want to just say, I can do anything. I can find a deal. I can underwrite it. I can raise capital. I can run your construction. It's like, that's pretty difficult to do for somebody who's just starting out. So, but if you're really like, I'm really good at underwriting deals. I've been underwriting, 10 deals a day, or, 10 deals a week for the past like 50 weeks. And, they've just been smaller, but I'd like to underwrite, the size that you're talking about. And you're really good at that. And, that's where you can really add some value to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's all about being focused, explaining your pitch, because it is a sales pitch. And, to add to that too, I know people like to ask, how much is each thing worth, right? It's all negotiation, right? And so to give you an example, I know guys who have ultra high net worth balance sheets, but at the same time, let's say, just to give an example, let's say it's a $15 million deal and we have $14 million covered. We're only short $1 million on the valuation on the balance sheet. Well, guess what? That million is worth a lot less, right? Because, we're only $1 million short, even though that person has $40 million of net worth or whatever, right? It's just kind of, it's relative to what true value they're bringing. And that applies for all these. All right. And then I guess I'll move on. So as my good friend John Rockefeller once said, because we go way back, basically said, I'd rather earn 1% of 100 people's effort than 100% of my own efforts, right? And again, it's about leverage, every step of the way, right? As real estate investors, we love leverage. And it's about smart leverage, not kind of dumb, reckless leverage, right? And so it includes leveraging debt, equity, time, experience, and contacts for people. And so it's absolutely kind of a team sport. And that's actually, to me, the things that attract me to kind of getting into syndication because people ask often, how did I get into real estate from software, right? And to me, what attracts me to it is that it's a people's game, it's a team sport, and it's a numbers game. And then the third component for me personally is that it's a systems and operations game. All right, so then on to the next one to try to stick to our tight timeline, because Garrison's really tough on us if we go over on time. Basically, the next one is buying your own deal. So who here wants to buy their own deal? This is where I hear people say, oh, me, but since it's online, no one's going to say anything. I think this is the thing really a lot of people fixate on. And I do highly recommend looking at the step before it, right, around adding value first, because it helps you avoid the mistakes. And really, this picture kind of sums it up, right? Buying your own deal, there's a lot of things that happen to kind of get through it, right? And it's again, like I said earlier, none of it is tremendously hard, but there's a lot of steps and making sure kind of what you're doing and you're not missing anything, right? So the first part is finding the deal, right? And so what do you need to think about when finding the deal? Well, first of all, what area, right? Are you looking, what are the markets you're looking at? And for us, we like to look at markets that, have job growth, have population growth. Those are kind of obvious things, but also the price points make sense, right? We're based in Houston. We left Houston, we've never owned a deal in Houston. We've had deals in Beaumont. We left Houston, 2 years ago to go to Atlanta, because at the time, Atlanta was another really attractive market, but the price points made sense, right? Whereas now I feel like we're about to get priced out of Atlanta because price points are getting too high. I can't buy them at the price point that I need to get the returns I need. And so you need to understand where you're buying and kind of the ramifications of that. And then tied to that too is, what's the size deal you're looking for, right? Trying to buy a $5-10 million deal is very different than trying to buy a $20-30 million deal, right? It's a lot of the same steps, but there's different things to kind of keep in mind, right? And make sure it's fit for you. And then, the obvious one, what do the returns look like, right? Are you looking for, some people just want to really say they own that really sexy deal down the street. Some people just want to really make money, right? So, think about what returns you're looking for and what asset class and location that needs to be tied to, right? And I guess couple that with the next one, which is what condition is that deal in, right? The other thing is who's on my team, right? For my partner and I mean, we have a big list of people that we know could be potential partners in different aspects, right? And we really look at anytime we get a deal, we're like, okay, what's the team we're going to put together? And that includes, not just the immediate GP, but also partners. Who's going to help do the debt, right? Who's going to help do the insurance? Who's going to help do all of these different aspects? And then next is deal flow. I already kind of beat that one to death a little bit, but deal flow is critical, right? And how do you go out and talk to the brokers, build those relationships, right? A big part of what we do is building strong broker relationships, right? To me, brokers are friends. I text them all the time. We send them gifts, vice versa, right? If you're going to go do your own deal, you need to be able to compete with that, honestly, right? And so keep that in mind because, again, right now the market is really heated, and so deal flow is kind of critical in getting the right deals at the right time. So right now we're doing a big deal in Corpus that basically we were pretty much the only ones that had gotten to make an offer on that deal, right? So that's huge. And then last but not least is kind of, do you have the time, right? It does take work. It is no longer a passive opportunity. It's an active opportunity. So those are all the things that kind of go into just the upfront thoughts before you really, kind of get going. Pal, Garrison, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I went through some of these processes too myself when I was buying and everything. And,
yeah.
You go through them of like, you want to buy your own, you want to partner, and there are certainly advantages of either way. But the truth is, you will run out of money eventually. If you just buy on your own, you will have to find some partners, and it's going to be hard to just purchase these on your own and without anybody else involved, and to continue to be able to do that. Eventually, you need to bring on some friends, partners, investors, whatever it is, to continue this, after a while.
Yeah, and to maybe pick on you a little bit, Pal. So let's talk about the size of the deal, right? Mm-hmm. What were you looking for your first deal? And then now, if you're going to do a deal, what would you look for, right? What has changed? So people can kind of get an idea of, how you, and why did it change, right? I think those go hand in hand together.
Yeah. So, when I did my first deal, my first apartment was a 40-unit apartment building. So 40. That was in Indianapolis. Here I live in Los Angeles. And, they did the whole thing, right? Find it, finance it, run it afterwards, that whole thing. And then, once it's done, it's not done just because it closed. Now the whole thing starts, right? You're an owner. You gotta be on you gotta be doing everything involved. So it took me about a year later to find my next apartment, and it was a 61-unit apartment building, but I couldn't do it by myself. I had to bring in some partners to do that one. And, again, but it was mostly me doing the same thing, finding the deal, financing the deal, figuring out all that, getting ready with the asset management and the operations of the property and anything that needed to be done. But quickly after that, I realized at that point I was pretty strapped in terms of time. I didn't have any more time to do this, and it takes another year to get another one. I just didn't have the time to continue to do that, and no more money. So I realized really quickly I need to partner with this. And now that I'm partnering on deals, sort of the minimum size that I'm looking at is probably around the 100. I'm probably looking at the 100, 150 range. But I've done deals with partners and, with Ferris and everything, that these are 200-unit apartment buildings. There's other ones that I've been involved in 200 units. So they're a lot bigger, and they require a lot more partners and a lot more things going on. But it's definitely where I would rather be, rather than being in the 40 to 60 unit range where I was before. So hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. And to add to what Pal said, there's a lot of issues with the 40 to 60 unit range, and we can go over those at another time, or someone can ask that question later.
Yeah, for sure.
Garrison, were you going to say anything, or are you good?
You know, in general, I was just going to kind of reiterate a little bit of what Powell said. I came from the single family space. I came in with the mentality that I could do absolutely everything by myself. I can pay for the deal. I can manage the deal. I can run the deal. I can do everything myself. And, you know, the difference between multifamily and single family, the biggest difference is that it's a team sport. And I got to 100 apartments. I pretty much ran out of my own personal money. And then I had to figure out, well, what the hell's next? And I was beating myself up, running around, trying to handle absolutely everything. And since then, I woke up. This is a team sport, and my life got so much easier and so much more profitable. It's crazy how that works, and it's crazy how they go hand in hand. You would think that I would be making more money whenever I was doing everything myself. It was actually the opposite. I'm making a lot more now that I have teams around me. And when I say teams, it's multiple teams in multiple markets.
Yeah, and to expand a little bit on what Garrison said, right? I mean, as we've been scaling up kind of our company, the biggest thing I really look at is how do I bring in a person that is so much more qualified than me to do each role, right? And so because you're hiring on the right people, you're partnering with the right people, the best people, right? You're able to actually operate a lot more efficiently. And, you know, I mean, the example I like to give is, my asset manager has 25 plus years of experience. My property manager has 25 plus years of experience, right? Together, they have more years of experience than pretty much double my age, right? They know a lot of things that I don't know, or things that I wouldn't have realized, right? And it's being able to bring them in is because these are bigger deals. You can afford it, and they can help make sure these deals are kind of humming and rock and rolling.
And I mean, and besides obviously the money side and everything, the team side is great. But truthfully, one of the reasons why I did it too is honestly, it's just more fun with a lot of people. I mean, I like people. I like being around people. I get jazzed up when I hear that Garrison's closing these big deals and he's got these things going on and Ferris is moving on this. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I want to be part of that. And I'm like happy to be friends with these guys and other people. And so me personally, when I was just doing, like, I had my 40 unit by myself sitting in front of a computer and like writing emails back and forth and, doing spreadsheets and stuff. I mean, I was like, I can't do this for that much longer. So that's just me personally, but
it's that accountability piece, right? You feel accountable to your partners and it makes you work harder and, it's usually more enjoyable. So
yeah. And have fun with it. I look forward to, seeing everybody and things like that. So.
Absolutely. So to kind of maybe really go full circle on buying the deal part, right? Once you get a deal under contract, I mean, there's so much that it goes on in parallel, right? So we're actually at this point right now on a deal, and basically we're lining up the debt. Tomorrow that should be executed. We're lining up the equity. That's been a busy week just getting that. Today's only Monday. All the legal part, right? Like I mentioned, there's a lot of, you are raising money, right? There's SEC laws you have to follow. There's entity paperwork, PPMs, all this fun stuff that has to get created and reviewed. In addition to that, title gets queued up. In addition to that, insurance gets rock and rolling. And again, property management is rock and rolling on multiple fronts, right? They're doing due diligence or they're also basically out there kind of starting to plan for a takeover. And so all of these things, pretty much happen simultaneously, right? Like basically you get an executed PSA and then boom, all of this gets kicked off. And so definitely a lot of pieces to keep in mind. And I like to say, what we do is basically project management on steroids, right? How do you keep all of these people moving forward, all of these pieces moving forward, and, avoid any issues along the way? And then, the thing that everyone fixates on is buying the deal, right? But the issue is you just bought a multi-million-dollar business. Do you understand how to operate a multi-million-dollar business? Right. Buying the deal, truthfully, is actually the easiest part of a lot of these deals. It's what happens after that's the hard part, right? Understanding how to operate. And it's not just about hiring on a third-party property management company and basically checking out. It's actually, even whenever we brought property management in-house, but even whenever we had third-party, it's about staying on top of it, keeping track of everything, making sure everything is humming, right? It's a lot of hard work. And again, you're tying to investor. Basically, like a lot of investors, they're, part of their life savings, right? There's expectations that investors have and need to manage that. coupled with everything else. And so, I mean, really the post-closing is the critical part to really keep in mind and understand all the work that's involved there. It's not just about closing the deal and then checking out. It's really about how do you, refine that deal and get that business plan executed. All right. And so then, kind of maybe the next 90 days, right? What are the different things to maybe people to do? First, educate yourself, right? Get your finances in order. Make sure you have a PFS, right? Make sure you have an REO. If you don't know what those are, go research them or go ask Anton. See you there, Anton. Again, next thing, define your investment criteria, right? Make sure whether you want to be passive or active, understand the types of deals you're looking at and the deals you want to get involved in. Next up, network with potential partners, operators, and brokers, right? Like Garrison said, it's a team sport. Like Pal said, it's a team sport. Like I said, it's a team sport. So if you don't realize that it's a team sport, you should really keep that in mind and start to build out your network, right? And then kind of last but not least, start making offers, or get involved in a deal, right? Whether it's active or passive. And so, that's basically that's really the next 90 days and how to get going, right? Keep that in mind. It's a lot of pieces. Hopefully it was not too much data that we just kind of threw at everyone, but the idea was to give everyone a taste of things. And then from that, people can kind of start to figure out what avenues they want to go down. And before we open up the Q&A, right, again, as Garrison said, we're Multifamily Masters. The next MFM Live that we're doing is going to be March 16th. Sorry, I should not have included the word Houston there. Can you tell I took it from another deck? As Garrison said, world-class speakers, awesome education. And, no sales pitch, right? The idea is about creating value, giving back to the community and helping people kind of succeed.
Something to touch upon. You mentioned us talk about 100 deals, 200 unit deals, 300 unit deals, 80 unit deals. But this is all about just getting your first deal. Doing something is better than doing nothing. A little bit of cash flow is better than no cash flow. So take action, get traction, and let's win pretty much, meaning get off your ass and let's do something. Surround yourself with the right people and take a deal down. Learn by doing.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with some people who have been there and done it. So it makes it a lot easier for you and your team and your family, because the goal of this is to provide extra income, build wealth for you and your family.
Yep. Garrison nailed it, man.
All right.
So
I guess with that, yeah, let's do Q&A. So if anyone has questions, go ahead and message them into the chat, and we'll maybe, Garrison, you want to read them off and we can collectively answer them?
Yeah, let's see here. I saw a couple questions as we were scrolling through. Pal, if you see anything, feel free to speak up. I'm scrolling up the log right now.
Sure. There was a question really quickly from the very beginning from Derek Harper. How do you get on the newsletter? You can email any one of us, and you can email me at powell@platinumequitypartners.com. We'll put you on our email list, and you can get involved in our newsletter.
Someone else asked about, do we have meetups in Orange County, California? In general, we have meetups in a lot of places, and every month we're popping up in additional places. Hey, Ferris, how accurate is our website in regards to current list of meetups, since we've added quite a bit?
Probably has not been updated the past few weeks, right? So meetup.com is probably the best source, and then the website, we'll get that updated here in the next week or two.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Wissam, there is some in Orange County, right? There's one in Lake Forest, and there's also one in Fullerton. So,
another question here from Syndicated Realty Solutions. How do you effectively find investors for your deals? Ads, friends, network, etc.? ? In general, you want to tell absolutely everybody what you do. You want to keep a digital business card on you. You want to get everybody and anybody into your CRM, into your database. This is a database-driven business. The more people you know, the more people you can touch, the more seeds you can plant, the likelier you are to successfully raise capital. And these guys will definitely touch on a couple other.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to me is just all the above, right? Keep in mind that there's different types of deals, right? So for example, if you see a deal being blasted on Facebook, right, that's probably what's called a 506C offering, right? Which means that you can share it publicly. You can go get a billboard on the side of the road if you want to, but the trade-off is that all your investors have to be accredited investors, and not just accredited, but as a sponsor, you have to actually go get third-party accreditation, which from our experience, is actually kind of a pain. We've done both of them. We typically like to do 506B, which is the other type of investment opportunity offering. And essentially with the 506B, that's B for boy, you can accept what's accredited and sophisticated investors. Please go research what those are. But the nice thing about it is that it's self-accreditation, right? So if Garrison tells me he's an accredited investor, I can believe him, right? The fault is kind of on him. I don't have to go get a third party that's going to go rip apart Garrison's financials and make him do a lot of work to hit their rubber stamp. And so if you're doing a 506C, you can blast it around. You can tell the world about it. 506B, you have to have a pre-existing relationship, right? So that's kind of the key takeaway.
Awesome. Let me read some other questions here. So how do you find sponsors?
I'd say things like this, going to different conferences, meetups, events. I mean, there's a lot of sponsors out there, right? Sometimes maybe even more than there are passes. It's getting out there, meeting people.
Yeah.
Talk to us if you want to meet sponsors. We can give you a list and go interview them, go talk to them, and we're happy to share other sponsors that we like, know, and trust.
Yeah, we all know a bunch of them, so happy to do that. What do you consider a good deal? That's from Art. What do you consider a good deal? That could be a long answer, but in a short way, what do you consider a good deal?
Any deal Powell's do. No, I'm kidding. Basically, for me, a good deal is, what we look for in a deal is we're looking for any deal that's averaging 8 to 12% cash on cash, right? We're looking to double our investors' money 5 to 7 years. It's really dependent on the risk, kind of the risk-adjusted returns, right? If it's a beautiful, let's say it's an A- deal in a pretty decent part of a town, I'm okay doing that, a 7-year play that's going to get a little bit less returns. But the flip side is we have a deal in Atlanta right now that we're doing that essentially, it's a I wouldn't say deep value add, but it pretty much is, right? It had 30 down units. It's got, a lot of work that we had to do, but it's an awesome play, fantastic price points. And, that's a deal that we knew to raise the money, it's got to be home run returns, right? And that's a deal, thankfully, we're nearing the 1-year mark and it's going really well, right? And so it's really dependent on the deal and kind of how much work it is for both sponsor and how much risk it is for investors.
Awesome. Got anything for Garrison?
Nah, I'd pretty much reiterate what Paris just said. Another thing that I look for in every deal that I get into is I want multiple exit strategies. I want to make sure that I don't jam up myself or my investors. My investors' capital is way more important than my capital, and I hold that very close and dear to my heart. So exit strategies is definitely something that I look into when I do look at a deal.
Awesome.
And then I would add to that too is the sponsor is investing in the deal, right? That's another good one.
Good.
And another really cool thing is whenever you run your numbers and you analyze your properties and then you submit it over to a lender, they're going to double check and double verify everything and analyze that deal kind of along with you to make sure that your T's are dotted and your I's are, or your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. So at least you have a little bit of a fallback there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me see. We got about 10 minutes, so let's try to answer some of these as quick as possible as we can. So let me see. Okay. Is the underwriting process more than using a deal analyzer to get to the bottom line? That's from John.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? There's a lot that kind of you need to think about along that same vein, right? What was the story? Are you looking at T3s? Are you looking at T12s? Does the story that the seller is giving you make sense? Is that business plan executable? What's your risk analysis, right? Can the deal perform if things take a dip? I mean, there's a lot of other factors that kind of need to be considered to figure out how likely are you to hit those numbers that you're projecting.
Yeah. You're also looking at areas, right? So you're looking at the micro area. You're also looking at the neighborhoods and in the bigger city or metro itself. So a lot of different things in there. How about from Omid? You have something, Garrison?
Oh, no, I was just going to go ahead and go with the next one, which is Megan Lee. When you create an LLC, how do you avoid using your personal mailing address? Simplest answer, get a registered agent. Google registered agent in the city and state that you're in. Pay someone $50, $100 a year to sit there at a desk and collect all your mail for you so your info doesn't show up on public record.
And I think you skipped one, Garrison. If I find a deal and bring it to someone with more experience, how much should I expect? It's all about the deal. I mean, if it's a deal that's going to, triple in a year, I mean, you have a lot more leverage than if it's a deal that is kind of very vanilla. So I would say, from 5 to 25% of the deal, maybe is if you want a number, but again, it really varies.
Yeah. Depends on how much you do. And yeah, it's all negotiable as well. So, and it depends on what your other partners, how good they are. Right. Too. So,
yeah.
And it
All
depends
right.
on how bad do I need you?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So what do you use for a CRM system? We use ActiveCampaign integrated, kind of basically synced with Podio. I mean, other ones that people like is HubSpot is very popular, yeah. Zoho CRM, etc.
Yeah.
Next question. Would you consider a deal in an area that has poor population growth but has good numbers, cash flow cap rate, DSCR, 9 to 10% cash on cash? It's in Kansas City. 10-minute drive. I mean, honestly, it's really about what are you looking for in your investors, right? To me, if it's flat, I mean, you can find deals like that in a lot of places. And so if it's only 9 to 10% cash on cash, probably not, right? I'm looking at, I can get that in better markets. So if it's a little bit better, then I'd be interested personally. Garrison, Powell, anything to add to that?
I mean, just when you consider a deal yourself, you got to consider also who's going to be investing in it, right? I think that's what Ferris is talking about. Right? So you got to consider who's going to invest in this with you, right? So, I mean, when you're looking at all these, numbers and things like that, you got to think, okay, am I going to be able to raise enough money to close this deal, right? That's where you're going to be.
Okay. All right. Next question. I have a 42-unit property under contract with a water treatment plant. I believe that during the ownership, we'll be forced to connect to the sewer, and cost could be upward of $300,000 to $400,000. How would you approach the seller to reach an agreement on how we can address that now? Honestly, it's super specific, a lot of negotiation. One thing you could do if you don't know if it's going to happen, tell them, okay, how about you put $300,000 in escrow for 2 years, right? And if it happens, great. You use that money. If not, then he gets it back after 2 years, right? I mean, that's something, we've done things like that, but it's all about negotiation. All right.
What should a passive investor look for in deciding to invest with a sponsor?
Maybe that one got sent to you, Garrison. I don't know where that is. I think the answer to that is, look at the track record, look at the business plan. Does it match what their experience has been? Look at their team that's around them. Who's managing it? Have they delivered those type of results before? Are they investing in the deal? I like to tell passives, look at what the exit cap is. Does the exit cap make sense? Right? Because that's the simplest number that any sponsor can tweak to make a bad deal look good. And so I personally, in addition to that, on the passive side, I like to find deals that are cash flowing, right? Be a cash flow investor. Then you're not susceptible to market conditions as much as if you were just an IRR-driven investor.
And the other things, you can always ask for references, right? You can ask, like, who else has invested with you before, and I would like to talk to them. And then ask.
Yeah, I've had doctors ask me, what other doctors have invested with you, and can I talk to them? Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Would you consider a deal in an area that has poor population growth?
I think we did that.
I think we did that one, Garrison.
Yep, you're right.
All right, next one I think from Wassam. Are there deals you are affiliated with that we can passively invest with to begin? If so, how much knowledge along the way is shared about the mechanics of taking down and managing a deal? I'd say that's very sponsor specific around what they want to share, right, and how involved. Because I mean, I think if you're an investor that's bringing a big amount of money to the table, you have a lot more leverage in terms of saying, hey, I will bring $1 million to the deal, but I want to see X, Y, and Z.
Hey, fair.
Versus,
Starting to break up again.
Your mic's breaking up again.
No, that's weird because I'm dialed in. I'm not even on Wi-Fi. Okay. I was saying it's all a negotiation with the sponsor, right? If you're bringing a big amount, you have more leverage than if you're just bringing a smaller amount, right? It's just like everyone else. Next question. I have an accounting background, so I'm a numbers person, so underwriting should be something I'm comfortable with. However, I don't have the net worth, money for down payment, et cetera. Would it be possible for me to partner with someone who has money, net worth, or could raise the money? I mean, the answer is absolutely, right? It's about getting out there, networking with people, finding people that have the strengths that you don't or the weaknesses that you have.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, you could do it. You got to get started. But like Garrison mentioned before, like get started, get going, get something going.
Yeah.
Here's another question. I love a certain area, but there is little to no inventory and it's competitive. Would you consider buying land and building? There is land available. Really, it all boils down to the numbers. If the numbers say it makes sense, we do it. If they say it doesn't make sense and it's cheaper to buy and renovate or buy and hold, then we do that. But with that being said, if you're brand new to multifamily, I wouldn't necessarily recommend building a complex initially. There's a lot of drawbacks to dealing with contractors. I got into multifamily because I got tired of dealing with contractors. So that's a little word of warning.
All right, next question. What is the best way to connect and add value to a broker? I guess to a broker? I mean, it's easy to find them online. Call them, go grab lunch, talk to them, get to know them, right? And don't waste their time is the big thing. Show them that you're serious. If they send you something, right? Last week, I had a broker call me on Wednesday saying, here's a deal that I have for you to take a look at. It's a deal that you might like. It's a little more expensive than you usually buy, but it's a great area, great deal. And, the next day I called him. I'm like, hey, I know you said it was time bombed. Here, we took a look at it. We're about, X amount off on the price. If that works for you, let us know.
Ferris, I think you cut out, man.
Yeah.
I don't hear you anymore.
Hey, Ferris, you're muted. Next question. Has anyone done a deal using owner financing? If so, how was your experience? I've done it several times. I love it. I want it all the time. Doesn't always happen. It's going to be a good experience if you negotiate it right. It's all about coming to a meeting of the minds. It's all about creating a win-win. You have to listen to them and figure out what they're looking for and how you can help facilitate that want. And if you can do it and create a win for your side, go for it. It's easy money, or easily financed money. Hey, pal, you there?
Okay. Yep, I'm still here.
All right.
All right. Well, let me see. I think we're about done. I mean, unless you guys got any more questions, but I think we're about done here because we want to make sure that we respect everybody's time and want to end on time. So, any last words from you guys? Garrison, Ferris, any last words from you guys?
Ferris, go ahead. You got anything?
I think Ferris is checking the mic.
I guess Ferris is checked off. Pal, you got anything before I wrap it up?
No, I just super grateful to everybody to be here. This is only our second time doing this, and we're going to grow this out. We're certainly going to, we're going to put a lot of effort into this and make sure that we're going to bring value to you every single month doing this. So super happy that everybody's supported this.
I thank everyone for coming. Much appreciated. One more time, link in the comments. We have an awesome Facebook group where we add tons of value. If you have questions that did not get answered, feel free to answer them there. We have a lot of people running meetups across the country. A lot of those individuals own 1,000+ apartments, have years and years and years of experience lending, such as Anton. He's probably the smartest guy in the room everywhere we go. Get in the Facebook group, add value, ask questions. Second thing, Multifamily Masters Live every third Monday of the month. Third thing, YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. Link is in the comments. And most importantly, if you're interested in running a meetup, reach out to one of us on this call, myself, Ferris, or Powell. If you're all about really gaining exposure in this business and becoming a professional, a meetup is an easy, I'm not going to say easy, but it's an easy way to accomplish that. And that's why we came up with Multifamily Masters. Our goal is to see everybody win, and we help everyone around us from beginning to end. With that being said, we're going to call it a night. Thank you so much for the 70 people who chimed in tonight. We will see you next month. We're out.
All right, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, shoot. Garrison,
Yep.
did you take a picture?
I did not. Go for
Grab
it,
one real
pal.
quick. Can you grab it real quick? I can't. I don't. I gotta just figure out how to do this because I'm on my laptop. I'm not on my normal computer here. Ferris, you got it? I think Ferris got it. Okay. Awesome, man.
Cool.
Awesome.
Awesome. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Let's win. Let's crush it. Multifamilymasters.com.